This is Beekeeper Confidential, a show about the curious lives of bees and their beekeepers. I'm your host, Mandy Shaw. Today's episode features Brad Garmon, owner and chief apiarist of Commonwealth Bee Company. He's not just a beekeeper, though. He's also a husband, a father of twins, a nurse, and a bold entrepreneur. We dive deep into the inner workings of running an urban bee business that fosters the community and the health of Virginia's honeybee population. Please welcome Brad, the Commonwealth beekeeper, to the show.
I got into bees because I did not walk but run out of city life. I was a firefighter in the DC suburbs for a long time, and the rat race and the traffic really just kind of got to my family, and I was like, we need space, we need land, and it's a part of the country where if you're 5 minutes late leaving your house, you're 2 hours late showing up to work.
Whoa.
Yeah, we lived about 20 minutes, 25 minutes south of the city, but if we did not leave on time, it was a 2-hour drive.
So what was that like as a firefighter if you were responding to a call and dealing with that kind of traffic?
Yeah. It was one of those things where you try to get accustomed to it, but living in other parts of the state and stuff, it was a stress like no other, and we just tried to get out of there. So we ended up selling the townhouse. We bought a 10-acre farm.
Wow.
Down in like the center part of Virginia.
Did you have any prior experience with agriculture?
No,
Okay.
no. That is not what happened. We kind of just wanted to kind of do it ourselves. We wanted to have a little homestead. We wanted a piece of land that we could kind of pass down. We had family come by the farm, and like every family member planted a tree, and it was this whole thing.
Oh
And
my gosh.
we started adding a garden, and we had a menagerie of animals. We had goats, Lucy and Ethel, who were constantly in trouble. We had some cows. We boarded some horses, and then I can't really remember what kind of transitioned me into beekeeping. But it just kind of seemed like the next step. We were trying to build this little microcosm, this like ecosystem on our land. It just kind of seemed like the next best thing. So I did the thing. I went and I took a class and got hooked and bought some bees and killed some bees and
Yeah.
made what I assumed were all the mistakes, until I realized the next year that I didn't even realize what all the mistakes were.
Yeah.
And so like it was kind of a constant thing, trying to figure out this animal husbandry thing with these honeybees. So and then finally things clicked, and we figured stuff out. And so we just started raising honeybees down there by ourselves, and that's kind of where it all took off.
Wow. How many hives did you start out with?
We did the 2.
Yeah.
We did the standard 2 hives, which is funny because I'm one of those guys that kind of goes nuts with a hobby, and so I could have definitely gone out of control. But we started with 2 hives. We did pretty well. I think mite loads and things got to them the first year. I really didn't have a solid understanding on a lot of the biology.
Mm-hmm.
I read as much as I could and tried to learn as much as I could, and then luckily it kind of all cashed out.
Wow.
But shortly after getting the farm, my wife and I also wanted to start a family, and so that was kind of in the plans. But what was not in the plans was how efficient we were, because we had twins. And quickly, with the birth of 2 children at one time, came the realization that we had to go back to the city. And so very shortly thereafter, the farm had to get sold, and we needed to go where we could get some help. My wife and I both work, so we went back, and I just kind of felt like that was no reason to stop beekeeping. Kind of really started reading on some of the trends with urban beekeeping and urban agriculture, and said, this is just another chapter. It's not anything different than what I was doing out in the country. Was surprised to see the yields I was getting compared to the bees out in the country.
Oh, yeah?
And it was pretty remarkable. We were pulling a lot more honey in the cities
Hmm.
than we were out in the country.
Do you think that's attributed to just floral diversity that's available in urban areas?
Yeah, exactly. So in Virginia, in central part of Virginia, it's very it's crop based. It's an agricultural based nectar flow, and so the nectar sources come and go with the crops that are available. In the cities, you've got so much varietals, and ornamental plants and things like that, that there's just a kind of a constant diversity. People want things, blooming in their gardens year round. And so, the avid gardeners that are in these areas are structuring their gardens and their lawns to have some sort of floral diversity throughout the year.
Yeah. Would you say that is Virginia a very bee friendly state?
That's kind of interesting. It's really what kind of started to prompt the business, actually, when I really started kind of getting into the science of all of this. My primary job is in healthcare. I'm a flight clinician on a helicopter, a nurse with wings per se,
Wow.
and I like science based decision making. I like to do things based on what the evidence kind of shows us, and really got entrenched in kind of the surveys and things with Bee Informed Partnership and stuff like that. And what I found out when I really started reading that stuff back in 2017 is the Commonwealth of Virginia lost close to 62% of their honeybees statewide. We actually
Wow.
were the third highest state in the country for honeybee losses. And I really took that as a call to action, more so not even from the business standpoint, but more so for myself, that it really kind of hit home that this was a hobby for me, but it really was a calling for me to really pick myself up as an environmental steward and do something, because we had a problem. We were losing way more than half of our honeybees, and that in our state at that survey was all comers. That was the commercial guys, that was the backyard guys, and that was the sideliners. The averages didn't change. And so
Wow.
you have to wonder what is the cause of that. I think it's very multifactorial. I do think the majority of the state is very agriculturally dependent, and where farmers were previously able to have, this kind of diverse crop base, that's not what pays bills anymore. And so we have, a forced monoculture where we're planting corn and soybean, and those kind of things to pay farmers paying their bills. You can't blame them, but it kind of takes away a lot of that diversity. So I do think that's a big part of it, and that's why my drive to bring the bees to the city is kind of pushed by that, is because I can't go and advocate to the farmers that they take, how they're feeding their families, and they do some things to help my little buddies here. But I can go out and do education to try to make sure that we as beekeepers in the state of Virginia are doing the right things,
Mhm.
and managing them appropriately, because certainly I'm sure there's room for improvement there anywhere, um, but also to take advantage of the amount of flora and the varietals that are in the cities, as a way to kind of increase those numbers.
So are you working and building your business?
Yes,
So you're hustling as a husband and a father and a nurse and a beekeeper and an entrepreneur.
all at
All
once,
cylinders.
every day. Every day, yeah. And this is my second business, so I've got a little entrepreneurial spirit, and I've learned some lessons from a previous business that was very successful and continues to be successful after I moved on from it. And so that part of it, I think, is pretty ingrained in the development of this business, which I think has a lot of very interesting dynamics that are different than anything else. But yes, yeah, all cylinders every day.
Well, tell us about your business.
Sure. So, it was kind of a funny thing. I progressed from a backyard beekeeper. I read some things. I read studies. I watched all the YouTube videos. I went to the conferences, and tried to mimic, the people that were doing it the right way. And I started, like a lot of beekeepers are that are, trying to feed their passion and pay for their passion, if you will, selling some honey and some, beeswax candles, maybe a couple nukes from splits. I think the real change came from when some beekeepers in my area called me to help. And I went to them and showed them a few things and discussed their problems. And we kind of sat down and came up with a plan. And I remember one of them asked me, well, what do I owe you for this? And I mean, like, it didn't even dawn on me that this was something that people saw value in and were willing to pay for. I mean, I was mentoring people on my own for free because I wanted to do it. And I that's what kind of started the ball rolling on this idea of a true business, was that there was a need, and even when I was kind of developing it, you kind of have to wonder, especially in something that starts out as a hobby, is am I really just getting really ingrained in this idea and I want to pay for my hobby, and I had to like almost
Yeah.
talk myself out of it, like, look, I can sell honey and I can sell a couple of nukes and probably cover, the supplies for the next year. When you decide to go into business, you're looking not only at the logistical aspects of it, the insurance, the marketing, the like I'm sure you and others are aware, the constant like being on your phone and dealing with customers and getting out there and beating feet and trying to make your business go in the right direction. But I really feel like if you're gonna do this kind of work, you not only are kind of signing on as an entrepreneur and as a businessman, but you're really signing on as a leader in your field,
Hmm.
and you've got to be like willing to wear that hat, right? So somebody's going to call me and pay me X amount of dollars to come out and inspect their hives and give them some tips and help them out with their management. I better know what I'm doing. I better be able
Yeah.
to communicate that, because if people are going to pay for my product, I'm going to have to give them something that they find value in.
Yeah, absolutely. And I also think that being able to connect with people, like you have to have a good bedside manner to work with
Absolutely.
people and their bees, because their relationship with their bees is so intimate. They have to feel comfortable enough with you as a person to let you into that space and
Absolutely.
trust you and trust what you tell them. And that's one thing that I think is like, somebody asked me recently how to get into this business, and like, how do you find customers? How do you build on your customer base? And for me, it's referrals, and it's having that really good rapport with my clients that helps my business to grow. So if you don't have that, it's one thing to tell people how to manage their hives, but there has to be like, you have to have that like chemistry and I think the right kind of personality to really connect with people.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, even, from I had a customer service based home service business before, and you're going into these people's homes, right? You're going into their bee yards. They've spent money in it. They've done what they could. A lot of that mimics my job in flight medicine. I go to hospitals when people need help, when doctors need help, when facilities are kind of at their limits, and it's very easy for us to kind of go in there and kind of throw our capes over our shoulders and be judge and jury for what may or may not be going wrong. But does that progress our goal and our mission as a beekeeper and as a leader in beekeeping? And so yes, you're absolutely right. I think bedside manner is a great way to kind of frame that. Is you have to be able to come in and understand where people are coming from and kind of meet them at that level,
Yeah,
because they're not doing it purposely. Nobody's trying to kill any honeybees. Um,
exactly. Exactly.
it's just a matter of not only, giving them the tools that they need, but maybe giving them the education that they didn't get. That's a big part of my business model, is finding ways to educate. And I think I, again, pull that from my full-time job in medicine. I love teaching. I go out and I speak at conferences and I do a lot of lecture, and I'm very, very interested at this idea of not only retention, because I think that's very important, right? We've all sat through B 101 and just drank from that fire hose. Um, but I think the next step of that, if you're somebody in a teaching position, and many of those people don't realize they are in a teaching position. I think if you're someone who's going to be imparting knowledge on somebody, I think the goal for us really should not just be retention, but recall under stress. And I that's really a really interesting area of psychology and learning how adults learn and how adults are educated appropriately. Because certainly I want you to know the bee biology. I want you to remember what a good brood pattern looks like. I want you to remember what to do when you see emergency cells and things like that. But I don't want you to be able to write those things down on a test and walk out of a classroom. I want you to be able to recall what you need to do when you've got 50,000 stinging insects flying around your head and you're thinking to yourself, oh my God, what am I
Yeah.
going to do?
Yeah.
And so as an educator, as somebody who's trying to push this beekeeping world forward, I think that's a big drive for me, is trying to find ways to supplement some of the usual pathways of beekeeper education to try to get that recall under stress thing down.
Yeah, that's such an important element because I think it's easy to read something in a book or go to a class, but then when you are out in the field and you're exercising that information and you're nervous and you're scared and the bees are maybe getting a little agitated because they sense your apprehension, being able to not panic. Like, I don't necessarily want my clients to call me every time they have a panic. My goal isn't to keep a client for years and years and years. My goal is to build them up so that they can go and be a beekeeper on their own
Yeah.
at some point.
Let them fly, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, we definitely kind of work the same way. We take in mentors. We support our local bee chapters, our bee clubs and everything. I do take in a couple of mentees for free to try to kind of get them started and that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Very often, a lot of times we get those frantic phone calls. And a lot of times I feel like if I can get them to be like, well, what do you think? What are your options? And instead of speaking to them and really like watching them kind of pick apart and dissect what their possibilities are and their options. Well, if you did that, what bad things could happen?
Mm-hmm.
That to me is a better way to reinforce those foundational aspects of beekeeping. And so we found that to be really successful. And then we also invite our mentees and our first year beekeepers who have been with our program to actually act as apprentices for our program.
That's fantastic.
It's a way for me to get some volunteer help because I'm running a light green budget. I'm not in the dark green part. I'm in the light green part.
I have people tell me, well, you need to hire some help. It's like, I can't even pay for myself. Like, I'm paying for all of my bees and my equipment and my transportation and travel and stuff, but I'm not at the point where I can like truly make a living off of doing this. So I certainly can't help somebody else make a living off of it.
Yeah, our mentorship program is nice because I feel like first year beekeepers, they get very, very excited, right? I think we've all told at least 3 new beekeepers, like, no, you actually don't go in the hives every day to make sure that they're, still there. So they're really antsy. And you know what? They need that repetition that they don't have because they don't have the space, they don't have the skill sets built up yet, they don't have the confidence, or they don't have the money to have the amount of touches that they need. So if I'm in a position where I have lots of areas that are in need of inspections and tendings and things like that, why not use those people that are eager and want to get more repetitions? That helps my company out and it helps them out. And we have seen that those people that could come into that program really do well their second and third year.
That is so cool. I love that you do that.
Yeah. And then the more stuff that they feel comfortable with, the more stuff that they're invited to do. So when we get calls for splits or for swarms and stuff like that, we kind of have 2 levels of apprentice, and the higher level ends up going with some of the primary level guys. And they also do outreach and education at our farmers markets and things like that. So they really get entrenched with it, which I think is so helpful for them to kind of build some of that foundational knowledge. Ironically, that's the name of our course, is Beekeeping Foundations. And but at the same time, we're not in a direct competition with the other players in this space, which I think from a business standpoint is really important, right? There's 2 ways to attack a business. You either have a product that nobody else has, and so you market yourself as being the sole person available for that product, or you have a product that's in direct competition with somebody else, but yours is better and you attack their product directly. And it's really tough in beekeeping to pick one of those 2 camps, because we don't have, you're a plumber. Everybody's house has plumbing. There's a known need there, there's a known overhead there. When you're getting into farming, and to me that is what we're doing. We're farming animals. It's husbandry. There's a lot of unknowns, and we don't have the depth of clientele that other service-based industries have.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, it's really important to be very careful not to step on the toes of the beekeeping associations, to not be in competition with what they're providing and what they need to gain membership and remain an active club. I don't want to be in competition with the equipment sales folks. I don't know about where you are, but in our part of Virginia, kind of the central to northern parts of Virginia, we've got maybe 3, 4 bee shops.
Oh, wow.
And some of them have closed their doors as of recent.
Yeah, we've seen that here too.
Yeah. Yeah, it's tough. And I think there's a few things I think about that. One is so that's the big part of my business model is I don't want to be in competition. I want to be in concert with the other players in the space. I
Mm-hmm.
want to find a niche that I can provide that they can't. So, for education, to me, that's one-on-one learning opportunities. That's something that a lot of times the clubs aren't able to provide. I don't sell equipment. I send people to local purveyors and distributors of equipment and try to work any events that I'm doing around their events so that we're all working in concert, because it's too small of a space to be pushing people around.
Yeah. There are enough contentious issues that people
Oh,
can
sure.
fight over and get hurt about. And I
Exactly.
kind of feel the same way. I mean, I have very good friends that have similar business models, but I definitely don't think of them as competition. Like, we
Right.
support each other and learn from each other, and sometimes get each other some referrals for clients.
Yep. Yep,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, it's a very like community driven. It's very funny. I keep wanting to call it a profession. I keep wanting to say, I keep wanting to use that word and I stop myself. And I'm not sure
Really?
why I stop
Why?
myself. I don't know. It's got all the makings, it really does.
Yeah.
When you look at what I'm looking to do with this, which is to integrate it into as many facets of urban life as I can. So to touch on the bee shop thing, you don't want to have all of your bees in one basket to use a use a bee term there, right? You don't want all of your business to be in one widget.
Hmm.
And that can be tough when you're starting a business because you also don't want to spread yourself too thin, but you
Yes.
need a little bit of diversity in your business model in case something doesn't work out. While I don't know every business model of every shop that's closed down, if that's what you're putting your heart and soul into, if that's what you're putting all of your money and you're investing your time into selling bee equipment, you either need to find another avenue of business or you better hope that that is what's going to sustain you for years.
Right.
So for me, my business model is small. Compare that to the people that I've looked up to me, the titans in this industry, all women, by the way. Lee Catherine down and Be Downtown, Hillary over and Girl Next Door, even like Rhoda at Indigo, like all these
Hmm.
very well thought out, very educated, very smart business women are who I've listened to and, have not spoken to any of them, personally, put a plug out there. But
I may have some connections.
yeah, you hear how they've gone from, Jump Street into what they're doing now. I'm still in that growth period and I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
I'm okay with where I am because I am trying to create a diverse business model but keeping it within arm's reach of myself, because the minute it kind of gets out of your reach, your quality is going to start to suffer. And
Hmm.
we kind of see that anytime anything gets mass produced and that kind of stuff, right? So we sell honeybees, a very small amount, because our honeybees are all from our apiaries in Virginia. There are a handful of very well established honeybee suppliers in Virginia, but like many states, the majority of honeybees that are ordered in are coming from out of state. They're coming from the pollination windmill.
Yeah.
And luckily for Virginia, we have a state apiary inspector, and that inspection service does a very good job. However, we're still getting bees from outside our climate base. Money's going eventually outside of our state. And so it's very important for us, even though it means smaller amounts, that we're producing almost a boutique product of bees from
Mm-hmm.
Virginia.
Like the biggest bit of advice that I have for people that are just getting into beekeeping is to buy your bees locally.
Yeah. I've actually heard of some clubs who have basically said if you're a member of this club, you're agreeing to only buy your bees from other club members, to
Wow.
try to keep, to really try to push this importance of local bees for local folks kind of thing, which I think is awesome. So we do that part of it, and do the honey sales and the networking and the at the farmers market and all kind of jazz. But the education thing is obviously a big part of our product. We are integrated in the school systems. We feel that,
That's really incredible.
yeah, we have actually helped create sustainability clubs in some of the high schools.
Oh my God.
We feel that beekeeping and apiary management can cross the curriculums. There's a biomimicry within a colony that can be a discussion point for so many things, from leadership, like Be Downtown's doing, to government, and to working in a community. All of these things, senior projects, all these kind of things are opportunities to use the honeybee colony and our relationships with honeybees and the environment as a catalyst for learning. So that's a really big part of our outreach is reaching into the schools. And we do things with little fifth graders. I know you and I talked about um, whirlwind. I can assure you that twins was a lot, but 10 fifth graders was more. Um, but we do
Yeah.
things with the younger kids and the high school kids, as well as like the community groups, try to, like I said, we want to work in concert with everybody in this space. And that means our extension office colleagues, that means our master gardeners.
Well, that is a true honeybee mentality.
Isn't it though? Yeah.
Yeah.
We're doing our little part, but we're trying to do something for the greater good in the area. So
Yeah.
I think, all of those things are really important. I've been toying around and writing this article because thinking about beekeeping almost as a public service. Like when you think about public servants, what are those people? Like they're firefighters or police officers, county workers, and that kind of stuff. But is having this sort of emphasis on environmental stewardship and management and having this green ecosystem driven community something that the public should be entitled to? I would lend to say yes. And so it's kind of an interesting thought that I've toyed around, and reaching out to some of the governments in some of the DC suburbs to talk about, like, what are you guys doing with your green space? That's a big hot topic out here,
Mm-hmm.
with LEED designations and having green buildings, and that kind of stuff. We actually have companies in this area that are urban landscapers who are designers of rooftop gardens and spaces. So these are all areas that we want to waggle our way into, if you will. And that's why when I talk to people who are like interested in like starting a business, I talk about it from my standpoint, because I'm not up there with the titans yet, and that's okay. I think that's a big important part of it. You're growing slowly is growing quickly, doing it
Right.
right the right
Well,
way.
and then also it allows you to find what really works. Like for my
Right.
business, it's still really young and I'm still very flexible in the direction that it's going to go.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's important to allow yourself time to find that path.
Yeah, it's definitely exciting, and I definitely find myself like, okay, but then the idea bucks for later, right?
How do you manage all of this?
I don't know what it is. I've always been just a driven guy. I've been a fireman for a long time, much less than some. There's guys that are on the job for 25, 30 years, but this is my 14th year in fire service, EMS, that kind of thing. 24-hour shifts, running on an hour of sleep.
So you're just really well conditioned for constantly
Well,
hustling.
come talk to me when I'm 40 and in a home and being, wheeled around. But at the moment, I'm keeping up with it.
Yeah.
I think everybody can get behind the idea that honeybees dying is bad. And I think a lot of people are willing to wave a flag and stand and sign a petition and those kind of things. When it comes to business, you got to remember, you got to know your clients, and you also have to know yourself and what your time is worth. And I think that could be really hard. I remember hearing a podcast early on from Hillary over at her Girl Next Door business model. And she was saying like, yeah, I'm going to charge I'm going to charge my hourly rate. Like, yeah, I'm going to charge it more than the average for my honey because that's what it's worth. And if we all realized how much our time was worth and weren't giving away, the cow with the milk and whatnot, we would find ourselves to be a lot more of a profitable
Yeah,
business line.
absolutely. And like really what we do is so specialized,
Hmm.
and we are putting ourselves at certain risks
Yeah,
working with
certainly.
bees, not just from, getting stung, but also back injuries, overheating,
Oh yeah. Oh,
all that stuff.
you sweat when you do it?
It's very physically exhaustive. Although, so I'm turning 40 next year and I don't exercise
Uh-huh.
ever. And this last bee season was particularly hard on me, like physically. I felt like my stamina was just garbage. And so I just signed up for kickboxing classes.
Nice. You're going all in.
I'm going all in, and my goal is to be in the best shape of my life when I turn 40.
Awesome.
So I'm giving
That's a
myself
good
a
goal.
year to get ripped and in
Yes.
shape, because I
Yes.
don't want to break. I'm not done playing. I want to.
I have been known to dabble in the boxing art. It's quite a workout. It's not moving. It's not humming supers and deep hive boxes in the middle of July, but it'll work you out. That's for sure.
Yeah, I think I need that. I've been lucky this year. I had one couple that has me come out. They have their own hives, but they have me come out and take care of the bees for them. And they always give me a hard time. So even if I stop by just for a very quick visit, like maybe less than 30 minutes, they insist on paying me for the full hour. And
Sure.
I feel like,
Yeah.
oh no, that's okay.
Yeah.
They're like,
No,
you
yeah.
are running a business and we're paying you the full amount. So people like that are, I think, really wonderful to have as clients because they recognize that my time is of value and my services are of value. So like we all need clients like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I remember like when I first started charging, you'd get in this great dialogue. You'd be like, "Oh, the bees need help," and they'd be like, "Yeah," and be like, "And you could help," and they'd be like, "Awesome!" Be like, "We could put bees in your backyard, and your gardens will look beautiful, and you'll be this like pillar in the community." And they'll be like, "Awesome!" And I'll be like, "And this is how much," and then it's like silence, or you almost like squint before you hit enter, you know, like it's but then eventually you realize that your product's worth it, that the bees are worth it, that your time is worth it. And that's, I think, such an important part. If you're going to go into business for yourself, you have to be committed to your idea and realize what you're worth.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Brad.
Absolutely. Thanks, man. You take care of yourself.
All right. Talk to you soon.
All right. Bye.
Bye. To learn more about Brad, visit him online at commonwealthbee.com. If you've been enjoying the show, please help share the work that we do by leaving a review or liking and sharing Beekeeper Confidential on social media. And if you want to give a little extra something, head on over to patreon.com/Mandy Shaw to become a patron. I'm continually blown away by the passion and energy that our guests and listeners have for bees and beekeeping. It is a great privilege for me to produce something that gives us all a bigger, stronger, more powerful voice in this world. Until next time, may the buzz be with you. Beekeeper Confidential is a Waggleworks production and is written and produced by Mandy Shaw.